I want to welcome you guys back to a whole fresh new season of the Rad Chick Society podcast. As I share in a quick moment here while talking with Monika, who's our guest today, Monika Gilliam, I am really excited about this podcast because it gives me and you guys the opportunity to actually get to know the Rad Chicks. Like so many of these Rad Chicks, I feel that we follow them on social media. We see who they are on social media. We see that they ride, but we never get the opportunity to actually get to know them. So this is like such an amazing opportunity to actually talk, converse, and get to know who these girls are on a deeper level. So that's one of my huge goals here with the podcast and with this YouTube channel. Yes. If you're listening to this podcast on whatever podcast app, whether it's Stitcher or Spotify or Apple, it is now live. You can watch this podcast on YouTube. We're bringing a whole new personal element to the podcast and to the Rad Chicks community via YouTube. So make sure you head over to YouTube right now. Make sure you subscribe to the Rad Chick Society channel. If we hit 1,000 subscribers, we can do some really cool things. So I'm just throwing that out there. If you subscribe, if you can share this with everybody you know and tell them to subscribe, we'll be able to actually create a community on YouTube versus only being able to post our own videos. So help us get there. Subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, go do that right now. Anywho, we're going to get into today's podcast. We are talking with Monika Gilliam. I travel majority of my winters, usually 6 months out of a year or so. And this year we happened to stay put in Florida. And Monika was somebody that I had met on Instagram. Like I meet everybody on Instagram and chat with, and we just kind of clicked on Instagram. And then it happened to be that I was going to be living in Florida all winter. And so we were able to meet up quite a few times, do some mountain biking, dirt biking, go out to dinner. Like we actually got to chat and get to know each other. And she was somebody that I was really excited to have onto the podcast because she is such a genuine, authentic person, such a good person to have around in your circle, such a goal-driven person that she is somebody I want you guys to meet and to know because you need her in your life. So I wanted to bring her on the podcast so you could actually get to know who she is, a lot more of where she came from, because her story is pretty incredible. And that will give you the confidence to know who she is so that you reach out to her so that you can bring her into your circle. So let's get to it.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You are now entering the Rad Chick Society
Podcast.
Hi, Jess.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
So you're somebody that I've obviously wanted to have on the podcast for so long because I've asked you to be on the podcast for so long, but we just haven't made it happen with me traveling, not having internet. It was a mess. So I'm excited to kind of like revive the podcast, and I'm excited to have you as my first guest with this next season here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. When you reached out and asked if I wanted to do it this week, I'm like, heck yeah, sign me up.
So for those who are listening, I should say, I got to meet Monika this winter, and not only is she like an acquaintance, but now I can like call her one of my friends. And I wanted to have her on the podcast because I feel like you are so many different things, like all the good things of a rad chick, with everything that you do. And I feel like we'll talk about this more later, but I feel like you're really fearless. You're really caring. You're really authentic, and you have like so many amazing qualities. And
I wish I could hug you through the screen right
now. So I think with this podcast, what I really want to do is I want to be able to bring the girls to life. So this is our very first time doing this live. I was actually able to meet in person with Carrie Knox while I was in Florida living at Spider MX, and that was really cool. And that was a great podcast.
Super awesome podcast, by the way. I did listen to that one.
Did you? I was so bummed because it was my very first time doing it live, and my dog walks in and swings her tail around, knocks the camera over. And I didn't realize when she did that, the camera stopped recording and we missed like the entire guts of the podcast. And I was like, oh,
thanks, Ryder.
But anyways, I'm excited to have you here. And like I was saying, I think this is so important because on social media, we get to see people, but I feel like we see them in one dimension because I don't think it's even possible to show all the dimensions of who a person is on social media. And sometimes people don't use it for that purpose. So what I really want to do with the podcast and with doing it live is being able to actually like bring people's personality to reality, to social media.
Yeah, and this is like a girl's talk. And like you said, I think a lot of people like box themselves in on social media to like this specific standard because they think that's all that the viewers want to see, right? But it's like everybody has so many different sides to them. Like you, for example, like you're you're living it and you like dirt bikes, you like food, you like clothes, you like all the things because at the end of the day, you're still a girl, right?
And I feel like in the dirt bike community, there's a lot of different communities, and I think each one has something different to offer. But I've always almost felt disconnected from certain people because I only see that one side of them. And I'm like, well, I like dirt bikes, but I'm not like obsessed with dirt bikes, but I love them.
Right. Yeah.
But then you actually get to meet the person and you get to see there's so many different levels to them, and it builds such a stronger connection. So I feel like being able to have these conversations and allow people to get to know people on multiple levels, I think can just create such a stronger community and more friendships all around.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
And honestly, the thing that like connected me to you, I found you on Instagram, of course, but I watched your Makeup to Mud video, and that was like a game changer because I saw one level of who you were with the pictures that you show. I don't even know if I was like fully watching your stories at that point or if I was even like actually following you, but you were someone I think that you kept coming up on my social media. And then I watched your Makeup to Mud and I got to hear so much more of your story, which I'm like, even though I've gotten to see you and hang out with you, we've never really gotten to sit down and talk. So I got to hear like a gist of your story and your background, and I don't know, it just brought you to a whole new level. So I'm excited to talk more.
Yeah, I was definitely really excited for that opportunity, especially since they wanted me to kind of give share my, it's easy to see, oh, she has no accent. Oh, she must be like an American. But then you see the commercial and you see that I am from another country, and my whole family is a family of immigrants. So I think that was really cool to bring to light because at the end of the day, that's who I am as a person. That's shaped me and my whole life.
Yeah. So tell us about where you are from, because you moved here when you were 10. Is that correct, to the U.S.?
Yep. So I moved to the U.S. From the Czech Republic. So I was born and raised in the Czech Republic, but now obviously I've spent majority of my life here in the United States. My parents, Jessica has actually met my dad, and my mom have a very strong, thick European accents, and I do not. I also have a younger sister named Lucy. She is 25, and she also rides dirt bikes for fun. But yeah, my dad moved to the U.S. here to live the American dream. He opened up his business here, and we're living it. I think it was really cool that he saw America as a little opportunity, and he stepped out of his little shell comfort zone and moved to the U.S. I mean, thinking now that's such a huge adventure. It's a whole new world. You don't know the language, you don't have a job lined up. What are you going to do? And you have a whole family to support, which I appreciated it back then, but I think I have a huge appreciation for it now because obviously I wouldn't be where I am today without him giving me this opportunity. So, not everything is perfect all the time, but I tend to be the type of person who's very thankful for everything. around me and the people that I'm surrounded with too.
I feel like there's a million things I want to touch on there. Let me start with the last so I don't forget. Do you think you're like moving here and kind of having to start over, even though like 10, it's like it's an age where you're heavily impacted and you have to make a lot of change, but at the same time, you're still very moldable. Moldable, is that the word?
Yeah.
But do you think your gratitude comes from that whole experience? Seeing your family kind of start over?
Yes, I think so, because I've worked, I think a lot of it has to do with like looking up to my parents and seeing how hard they worked to get to where they are today. And I know that there's a bunch of other people that work really hard, but I feel like as an immigrant, you have like something else to push through, and you have to prove yourself a little bit more than just the average person, you know? I think that they specifically faced a lot more challenges, especially like the language barrier, finding a job, you know? I think for certain nationalities, it might be a little bit easier to get by. But one of the things that really made a huge impact on me was my mom would sit with me and do my elementary school homework, and she would carry this like little pocket dictionary with her, and she would translate absolutely everything. And I remember my dad, he brought me to school one day on Columbus Day, and schools are closed on Columbus Day, or at least they were back then. And my elementary school teacher, Mrs. Cafaro, she actually had a huge impact on me as well. I still communicate with her to this day. But she walked up to us and she's like, "There's no school today." We were just so confused, but I got out his little dictionary and we translated for word. So yeah, things like that. I think it was their perseverance and the idea of not giving up. And I think that is what really stuck with me throughout these years, and it's brought me a lot of gratitude.
No, they didn't speak any English, or like very little, or what?
No, none. So, yeah, my dad came here, and I think he found like a little community of European people who worked as a car mechanic. So he did have a group of friends, but he knew like zero English. I mean, he knew how to say hi, hello. I think that was it. And when he flew to the US, he actually flew into New York and then took a Greyhound bus here to Florida and somehow landed in Sarasota. And that's where he's stayed ever since.
That's crazy, because I always wondered, did he know somebody here that was like, "Hey, come this way, come to Florida"? He just somehow made his way to Florida.
Yeah, he traveled with one of his other friends. They got on a Greyhound bus after they landed in New York, and they just rode on the Greyhound bus south. And I'll never forget him telling me the story, but they knew such zero English that the air conditioning in the Greyhound bus, I guess, was blowing too hard. It was really cold, and they didn't know how to tell the bus driver that their jackets were in the luggage below the bus. So they ended up like freezing to death almost.
I've gotten to briefly meet your dad, but he's just like happy, full of energy, just like definitely very optimistic personality. It's like, I wish I got to spend more time with him, because he does have that just like amazing energy about him. So I would imagine that energy helped him get to where he's at now. Yeah.
And I guess kind of shadowing on back like to my culture, he's the type of guy, he grew up in communism. So whenever my dirt bike breaks or things break, he always finds a way to fix it. It might not be by the book, but he'll always like rig something up to make sure that it works. So he's very handy, and he is very optimistic.
What was life like in the Czech Republic? Do you remember much as far as maybe the economy goes, as far as people's perspective on life, or I don't know, like what was it like that you remember?
Well, since I grew up there pretty young, I did go back and forth like every summer to visit my grandparents. And my mom would actually put me into European school for the summers so I could make friends every time I went back, which back then I was like, "Mom, I'm on summer vacation. Why are you putting me in school?" But now I have a really big appreciation for that, because I made friends and I didn't lose the language. I can still read, write, and speak Czech, which is also a huge thing to be bilingual. But I grew up in a very rural town, I guess. I don't know the exact population off the top of my head. We grew up in a little apartment, and I would walk to school every morning. And my grandparents lived out in the country. They owned a little plot of land. So picking cherries, strawberries, anything you can think of was something that I would do after school. And I would ride the bus everywhere pretty regularly. I wasn't really involved in a lot of hobbies back then. I don't know if it was because we couldn't afford it, but I just don't think that was something that we did back then. I think hobbies, I don't even know how to explain it. I think hobbies were kind of like more so for wealthier people, and we weren't that wealthy, so I didn't have a lot of hobbies. But yeah, I think that a happy life, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's always different too. Age definitely makes a difference on what you understand of what's going on around you. But I was just curious. I didn't know if I don't know if there was like oppression or if there was a lot of.
Those are great questions. Yeah, I would say that it was like a little tiny town. We didn't really struggle. I think the main difference was like during communist times. I think, you hear these like weird stories about the Soviets and stuff, but that's not how it was. Like my mom growing up would tell me that like my grandpa lied to get her into medical school, basically. And that the rules were way different back then. You couldn't just, go to the store and buy groceries. You would have to rely on trading groceries with like your neighbor, that sort of thing, because they controlled everything.
Yeah. And it's also funny how just as humans, we adapt to whatever our circumstances are. So we kind of just adapt and adjust and like, well, I'm happy, I'm alive, I'm eating, and everything seems fine. But that to another person could be a total different level of happiness.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my parents, they had one car, I guess. That's a little bit different. They didn't have two cars. So, everybody didn't drive to work. My mom would walk to work. I would walk to school. And I think Lucy, she was pretty young back then. My mom would like take her to preschool. But again, we lived in a pretty small town, so it wasn't hard to get around. And the main way of transportation was by bus.
And you said you had no hobbies then. What hobbies obviously you ride dirt bikes now and you just started mountain biking last year. But what hobbies did you do when you were younger coming to the US?
So this is odd, but in middle school / high school, I competed in martial arts. So I have a black belt in Taekwondo.
I honestly thought you were gonna say marching band. I was like, me too.
No, and I'm like, I actually don't know if Jessica knows this, but yeah, I competed in Taekwondo, and that's what I practiced. I trained every single day after school, and I became a coach, so that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Really? You don't still?
No, so I had like a surgery, and then I never got back into it. So Taekwondo is like one of those sports where growing up, it's not one of the sports I was like super proud of. It's not like I was walking around like, hey guys, I'm a black belt, because it's a little different, it's a little odd. So at first I was a little embarrassed about it. And then I think I got to the point where I was like, I'm good at this sport. Why am I going to hide this? This is a part of me. This is like something I'm passionate about. And I started being a little bit more proud about it.
What age did that happen at?
I think I was probably like 16 or 17. And I think a lot of it had to do with like the people I surround myself with too. Like my friends would think that it was really cool. Like, hey, karate kid, or you can karate chop someone. And I don't know. It's really awesome when you have friends that hype you up, or, that are proud of you.
For sure. Definitely makes a difference in everything you do and everything you want to do and become.
Yeah.
So you said, I remember you had shared, I think you shared a story. I don't think you shared a post. And that's one interesting thing about you. is you'll get to see like the pretty pictures of your life if you follow your Instagram feed. But if you actually follow your stories, you'll get to see so much more of who you are. But I remember when you shared your teacher, your first grade teacher there, you were talking about not having any, hold on, let me start over here. You were talking about when you had moved here, you couldn't speak any English. And that was the first time I ever heard that about you. I was like, holy moly, that's crazy. And this teacher was the one that helped you. And you had shared something about being in ESL, English as a second language, for if anyone's, So I don't know, tell me more about that and how you did come to learn the language and overcome whatever you may have been facing.
So during that time, there was a little program that foreigners would be put in to learn English as your second language. And usually foreigners would be placed in it like throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school. Like you follow this program, right? But they would take you out of class and teach you a different curriculum. And the curriculum wasn't up to my mom's standards. So I don't know, I think it was at third or fourth grade, instead of like learning normal stuff that those kids learned. I remember like I went to one class and they had me like coloring choo-choo trains in like different colors to learn like the names of the colors, but it was way past that. And I just remember coming home from school telling my mom, and she's like, what the heck? We're taking you out of that. So anyway, this teacher was one of the people who would spend time with me every single day during the period, like classroom period, trying to teach me English. And instead of like making my schoolmates like look down on me because I didn't know the language, she would say, hey, everyone, like understand that Monika doesn't know English. Let's all try to help her. And the whole class really would try to like teach me things. You have like arts and crafts time, I think in like first or second grade. And kids would like come up to me and teach me about like marbles. Like, this is a marble. And can you say marble? Or kids would even like spend time with me reading books, which I thought was really cool. But the teacher would go above and beyond. And I think a lot of it had to do with my mom translating every piece of homework that I received. She would write like the Czech name above every single word that she would translate and like leave it on my homework. And I think the teacher picked up on that. So I thought it was really cool that they didn't want me to be treated any differently. They wanted to help me. And I picked up English within the first year, really, first or 2 years. And then by year 3, I completely lost my accent.
It's crazy. I love it.
Yeah, but so like cool. The teacher, she like didn't have to spend her time with me. She could have just been like, oh yeah, go to that special program. They'll teach you English. But it was really cool that she stood behind me, and she also vouched for me, like, no, this is a smart kid. She can learn English on her own. She doesn't need to be in a special program.
And how about Lucy? Was she young enough to not have to make such a transition, or was she kind of along the same lines?
Yeah, so I think she went to like preschool back in Czech, but she also went to preschool here in America. So by that point, she, when you're around kids and you're surrounded by the language, you pick it up so much quicker. So she didn't have to go to a special program or anything like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And your dad rode dirt bikes when he was in Czech. So was that something or motorcycles or dirt bikes? Had he always ridden?
Him being a mechanic, he actually was around that whole scene about dirt bikes, but he got into a really bad motorcycle accident, like when he was younger. So he like swore off motorcycles for the rest of his life, which is really funny because of where I ended up today. But he got into a bad motorcycle accident, and he was actually in the hospital for like months, and his own mom like couldn't recognize him. I guess one of his friends, he was working on a bike, and one of his friends got a new motorcycle or something, and he went to go ride it, got in a motorcycle accident, and yeah, that was that.
When did he start riding again? Because he's obviously riding now.
Really funny that you asked that. So I actually made myself a little timeline here. I think it was in 2013 that he started riding dirt bikes. which is super random.
And when
go ahead.
I was going to say, when did you start riding? How many years ago?
I started riding in like 2013. I was in college, so around the age 20.
How old? You're 28, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 8 or so years.
Yeah.
So you both kind of started around the same time? Like, when did he start riding first, or did you start riding first?
So he actually started riding first. He was probably riding for like a year, and Lucy and I would go and watch him ride these like local hare scrambles. And I guess how that idea came about was like his friends coming to the shop, like, hey, Stan, come to an FTR race. So he came to an FTR race, Florida Trail Riders, for those that aren't familiar with the local Florida series. So he would go to these races and watch, and I think he took up interest in it, and he eventually bought himself a dirt bike. Throughout college, since I was located in Tampa, it was pretty central to like all the races. I would go and watch my dad race. And I remember after each and every race, I would beg my dad. I'm like, Dad, I want to be one of those girls on a dirt bike. And that's going to be me one day. It's just like, yeah, okay, keep dreaming. Right. But he finally gave in. And he bought my sister and I both a bike to share.
What was the first bike that you had?
A 2006 WR250F, which is a really heavy enduro trail bike. So I was just like, oh my God, this is the coolest bike ever. Yeah, thanks, Dad. But as you can imagine, I definitely struggled.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was like full on belief in you. First bike, 250.
Yeah, he probably got a good deal on it, and you're just like, whatever.
Right.
It's got a button. But I actually didn't start racing right away. I had to like prove myself to him that I could ride the bike before I was able to race. So our series does this thing called a fun run, where people of all skill levels and age levels go out on the trail after the race is done, and you can do one sight lap. And I fell so many times during my sight lap. My dad like was riding behind me, and I kept falling. I'm like, I'm not making a good case for myself. He's not going to let me race ever. But I got through it, and here we are today.
Was that the first time you'd ridden, or where did you ride when you first started to ride the bike?
Yeah, that was actually like the first few times that I rode. I don't remember the first exact time. I would expect that it was in like Northport or Prune, just like a laid back trail ride. But it's funny that I don't actually remember the first time I actually rode a dirt bike. I would assume that would be like one of the first couple times.
So you did a few of those fun runs? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I think I did 2 of them. And then I begged my dad. I was like, hey, I think I'm ready for it now. I think I'm ready to race. So he stuck me in the beginner class, and I rode a race now in the beginner class.
Now, I'm always amazed when people like you, and this is one of the things I like admire about you, is I'm not going to say you're fearless. I know you have some fears, but you're just like nothing's that big of a deal. You're just like, whatever. I'm just racing. I'm just like, you got a mountain bike last year and you were racing like immediately. And I'm like, man, I love this girl, because she has, like me, I'm like super cautious, and I'm like, well, I want to get comfortable first, and then I want to get comfortable around people, and then maybe I'll make the next step. And you're just like, yeah, I'm going for it. Let's do it.
I think I don't even, not saying that like I'm not afraid to fail, not saying that you are afraid to fail, but I feel like just throwing myself into it, it's sink or swim. I've got to like stay afloat somehow. So even if I suck, I kind of have the attitude of, it's just for fun. Like, if I'm not having fun, I don't want to ride in that. Part to me, like being competitive is fun. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't even know what it is about me.
This is like strange. Right? This is like a topic we kind of like wandered off into.
That's what's fun about this. Because I think like whatever one person is feeling, somebody out there is also feeling the same way. But I get so many people, you as well, who are like, come race. And I'm just like, not yet.
I guess I don't really like even look at it as racing. It's just kind of like, well, here's an opportunity to ride. Let me ride in between these people. And
Yeah. I kind of think that I grew up around I don't know. I think everybody has their own take as to how they perceive certain things and whatever, but I grew up horseback riding. I started horseback riding when I was 6. And yeah, if there was a show, you were like, yeah, there's a show, I want to do it. Like if you could afford to do it, like you went and you did all the classes that you could do. And that was never scary or intimidating to me.
Mhm.
But I grew up, hi Max. Is that Max? When I grew up around dirt biking, I think so much of my life was around people who were like qualifying for Loretta's, and my husband was a professional racer. Like, I think it's always just been such a extreme level that to put myself into this, like, I don't know, dirt biking, racing, it doesn't seem like a fun thing. It seems like it's a serious thing and we have to train. And I know it's not that way. I know I can go out there and just ride, but I think in the back of my mind, it's always been such a like professional level thing that I think it just sets my brain up differently when I think about riding versus somebody who's just like, oh, I get to go out and ride. Let's go. Like, I don't know.
And you have a great point too. I think another thing that kind of came to mind is we really only have 2 spots to ride here in Florida that are kind of like in the public, North Port or Croom for trails. So I think with these races, being able to race at like different property, I think that's why I kind of jumped on the opportunity too. It's like, when else am I going to get an opportunity to ride somewhere? You know, like, oh, I'm already here, might as well.
Yeah, I got the opportunity, of course, to watch you and go to one of the races. Where was that race?
Bartow.
Was it? No. Was it Bartow?
Dade City.
Yeah. It was Dade City.
In the middle of nowhere in a cow pasture.
My favorite town ever. And I definitely felt there was a whole different vibe there compared to the motocross. Like, I grew up around motocross, so there was definitely a whole different vibe. Even like the race vibe, you had a lot more space. It was like you got to take it at your own pace, and there was always somebody kind of there to help, you know, always someone if you got into a really sticky situation, which I saw a lot of those going through the creek.
Yeah.
At some point, someone would be there to help you if you needed it. And I think that is definitely a less intimidating environment. And I hear that from so many of the girls that I get to talk to, where they say that the woods racing is much more of a community vibe. You get to sit on the line while you're waiting for your race to take off and talk with everybody, and it's just laid back. And I hear a lot of positive things about it.
Definitely. And I think that I haven't really been to too many like motocross events. I can't really like add any input there, but I feel like even comparing it to the GNCC, the Grand National Series, I feel like that's a whole nother level of seriousness, at least for woods racing. Not saying that those people aren't nice. Everybody's like super friendly, and I'm sure at the motocross track, people are nice and willing to help. But I just feel like at a local race, we're not taking, like, where are you going? You know, we don't have a cash payout for our top riders, and we're really out there to just have fun. So maybe that's why there's a little bit more of the laid back atmosphere here. I don't know.
I think I'm going to get my guts up to do a race or more this year.
Yes.
So I'll be able to better report back on that when that time comes.
We need to do a podcast on that.
Yeah. I think I would imagine from what I hear from all of the girls, like you're going to have a few people here and there who are taking it seriously, who are trying to get to the next level. And then there's the majority of them. Plus our women's classes are pretty small up this way as far as motocross goes. But then you have the majority of them who are just like, yeah, it's just like an awesome opportunity to like get out and ride and whatever, ride with girls who are more on my level. So yeah, everyone definitely takes it at their, however they take it. But there's always going to be somebody that's taking it to the next level, but
it doesn't have to be us as long as we're having fun, right?
Right.
I think that's what I love about you. You're having fun learning, and you're having fun surrounding yourself with like other people, you know, and you're really personable too.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, when I started riding, it was, like I said, it was really intimidating. And so I was like, well, if I'm intimidated, there's got to be somebody else that's intimidated, or maybe my story can help get somebody else on a bike. But getting on a bike, it wasn't ever something that crossed my mind. Like you said, when your dad rode, you're like, I want to be one of those girls. Like we didn't have a whole lot of girls that rode when I was growing up in the scene. There was a couple girls, and of course there was a girls class, but they usually ended up stopping riding when they were about 18 or so, 18 to 20. Mm-hmm. And so it just wasn't like, it never to me seemed like a girl's sport. In the small town I grew up in, we had guys that rode dirt bikes, but just like around the farm and whatnot. But you never really like heard of girls doing it. So for some reason in my mind, it never ever crossed my mind of like, yeah, I want to ride, until I don't know. My husband even got me a bike. I got my TTR 125, and he was like, yeah, I want to get a bike for you. And I was like, for what? Like, and even after having that bike, it still took I think 2 or 3 years before I was like, all right, I want to do this. Let's do it.
Right. And I feel like people need to know, like, just because you're sitting on the back, it's not easy to ride a dirt bike. And a lot of people are like, oh, the motor does all the work for you. No, your whole body is doing all the work. And it is tough, especially to like learn what is a clutch, or when do you brake, all these like fundamental things. And like people like your husband, Adam, and people like my husband, Jake, it comes second nature to them because they've been doing it their whole life. Just like they're both preach like, faster is easier, just go faster, just give it a little bit fast. And it's like, once we're ready and once we feel the confidence to, we will take it there. But everybody has their own pace.
Yeah, there's a lot to know, like you said. And I always compare it to horseback riding because I've been on a horse since I was 6. And there's just things you quickly learn when you're younger, or your body is more pliable, where the consequences aren't as severe. And I feel like that's always kind of in the back of my mind, is I want to take it slow. I want to make sure I'm confident. I want to make sure I have the right form, because I have gotten some serious injuries from horseback riding that are with me for life. And I know if I hit the ground at the wrong point, like my spine could be destroyed. So it's like,
I was just about to say, like, okay, serious question. Were you ever like terrified to get trampled on by the horse?
Trampled, no. It's okay. You have like you grow to know your horse. You know how they respond. You know how to make them, like, even on the ground, like, you know how to make them move. You know what their intentions are. Right. So the biggest issue I always had, and my horse had this weird thing where he didn't like to work. Like, you know, let's just say, for example, with riding a dirt bike, like you do drills, or you practice, let's say you're practicing cornering, you know, there's things that you practice. Well, the same thing goes with riding a horse. You're not always just going out and gallivanting in the field. Like, you have to sometimes put in the work so that you can be better when you're going out to do other things. And so anytime we were in the arena, he hated to work, and he would do this thing where he'd be like going along just fine, and then he would take his like front shoulder and just like dip it and it would like always send me over. So, but the funny thing is, yeah, I hit the ground a million times doing that, but it's like you learn to anticipate what's going to happen. But yeah, the same thing with riding a bike. But the 2 times that I did get seriously injured were just like when we were having fun, and he just like, whatever. One time he spooked at a deer and he was like gone. I hit the ground, I heard my back crack, and that was like the most terrifying sound. Like, I'll never forget it. And I have like quite a few bulging, messed up discs in my back. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm paralyzed. Like, this is it. So, yeah. And then I kind of like tore everything on my shoulder on another fall, like just hitting the ground. But yeah, it's the unexpected no different than riding a dirt bike. Like, it's not usually when you're expecting it. It's when you accidentally do something or you got caught off guard that the bad things happen.
So true. So true.
But I was just letting the horses out yesterday, and they were like all excited. They knew I was going to go let them out into another field, and they were just like gallivanting, like galloping all around, so excited, like coming at me. And it's like, you know, their personality. You know, they're not coming to attack you or trample you. They're just like, yes, we're going out. So you just grow to know their personality and what their intentions are. And
that's so awesome.
They're a 1,000-pound animal, but they're very, very sensitive to a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, that's what I was gonna talk about, is your YouTube channel, because we were talking about dirt biking, and I know you had mentioned that you had always wanted to start, not always, but for quite a long time you wanted to start a YouTube channel. How was it? Did you want to start it revolved around dirt bikes, or did that just happen to be a natural part of your life that translated into YouTube?
So I think, like, being in college, I obviously I lived away from home, and I would watch a lot of YouTube videos, beauty videos. And I think, that was a huge hobby of mine, like just watching girls record videos about clothes and makeup and that kind of stuff. That took my interest. And I always told myself, like, that's going to be me. I'm going to make YouTube videos about this kind of stuff too, because that's what I like. And that's just what I want to do. And it wasn't until I got with Jake, and he had his own YouTube channel. And I told him, like, hey, I've always wanted to start my own YouTube channel, but people in the past have told me, like, that's a really lame idea. And he was like, that's not a lame idea at all. Do whatever makes your heart happy. Go do it. And I'm like, okay. So I started vlogging. But was that like my main intention to just record videos about dirt bikes? No. I feel like we talked about earlier, we all have different hobbies and interests. So I wanted my channel to not be just dirt bikes. And I think one of the things that Jake said was like, oh, let's get you like a YouTube channel name that people are going to remember, Dirt Bike Chick or Dirt Bike Girl. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to box myself in to just like one thing. Like you said on your stories, like, I don't want to be limited to just posting about dirt bikes. Like, yes, dirt bikes are a huge part of my life, but they're not my whole life. And I like dirt bikes. I like racing them, but I'm also not at a level as some of the girls that I race against. So, I could make videos about just dirt bikes, but I feel like that's just not me. And I want my channel to be about me. So if I feel like posting a video on bikinis, or if I feel like posting a video on the makeup products that I've been loving, or my watch that I'm wearing, like, I want to post that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that things change and people evolve. So this might be different in a couple of years from now, but yeah. So no, I didn't want to just center my whole YouTube channel around dirt bikes, even though that's a big part of my life.
We had a conversation at one point, and you were talking about, with your YouTube channel and your dirt bike videos, you wanted to, I forget like exactly what you said, but you basically just wanted to help make others feel comfortable when it came to riding.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's not a lot of girls who record like the dirt bikes, like dirt bike products, or just things about dirt bikes. I like in a perfect community, you meet girls like you and Alexis who like dirt bikes, and I'm probably not going about the right way of saying these things, but I want my channel to just be fun, and I want to capture like day in the dirt weekends, because I think that a lot of people don't understand what it's like just going bike race and not actually trying to do well. Just like going to a dirt bike race and like having fun, camping with your girlfriends, drinking White Claws. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, yeah.
Almost like what we were talking about earlier. You're like, it doesn't always have to be serious. Sometimes it's serious. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's a weekend with your dad. Like, it doesn't have to be.
And hey, it's super cool when people are serious about that. You know, they're very driven and very determined. That's just personally not the direction that I'm going, and I just don't see myself. What am I going to get out of dirt biking? You know, like, am I physically fit? Am I having fun? Yes, those are the two main things, and I want to do it with my family probably moving forward. But are titles in my future? Am I going to Loretta Lynn's? Am I doing these big races? No, that's because that's just not me. But hey, that's there for other people.
Now, you do travel a lot to race, though. And
Yeah.
I've always wondered, like, yes, like you said, yes, I love to ride dirt bikes. How do you, I don't know, maybe it's not so much about, I don't know, maybe you find balance in life, or how do you find the drive to want to race every weekend? Because you were racing a lot every single weekend and driving a lot. How, I don't know, what is that to you? How do you find the drive? How do you balance life? I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm asking, but talk about that.
Yeah, so finding balance, I think as I've gotten older, is easier and harder. So I work remotely. I've worked remotely for the past 5 to 7 years. I'm an immigration consultant. So again, like my career is my passion, which is immigration, because I'm an immigrant myself. But being remote and having the ability to literally take my job anywhere is a huge part of being able to travel and being able to race. So I raced 2 series this year. I raced the Florida Trail Riders Hare Scramble Series, and I also raced the Enduro Series. And our races are kind of like back to back every other weekend. But I'm really lucky because my whole family does it. My dad races, my younger sister races, her boyfriend races, my husband races, his brother, his dad. So I feel like racing for us is fun because we get to race out of state. So when we go out of state, we get to ride on these hills. You know, we don't have hills here in Florida. So I feel like, again, it's an opportunity to race a different kind of terrain, or to ride a different kind of terrain. And I keep saying the word race, but really we're just riding for fun. And sometimes driving is tough, but I think that me and my dad got down. Like whenever Jake doesn't feel like racing, I'll jump in my dad's Sprinter, and my dad and I will have a weekend trip with just me and my dad. And I think it's really cool that, like, at the age of 28, I'm traveling with my 55-year-old dad racing dirt bikes. We're starting on the same line at an enduro and catching between our races, checking up on each other. And again, it's a buddy system too, right? So in case somebody gets hurt, you would never go out of state alone and race an enduro alone, because what if something were to happen? It's always good to have a buddy.
Yeah, we always talk about that with even going to different events, and it's like, oh, I'd love to go, but it's just not smart to have to drive out of state alone. Like, what if you do get hurt? Then so what? Yeah. Someone has to fly or drive all the way there to get you somewhere safe, get you to the hospital, pick up your vehicle. Like, it's just not a smart thing, like you said.
Yeah, and with the whole balance thing, I think it was really a struggle for me at the beginning, because my outside of riding friends, my girlfriends didn't really understand riding. And I think that riding has been such a huge part of my life that when they do text me like, hey, do you want to go and have brunch or something? And I'm like, oh, sorry, I have a race this weekend. They're very understanding because they see that I have a hobby and it's my passion and I really enjoy it. So they'll be like, oh, where is it at? Can I come watch? Which I think is really awesome to have friends like that. Like for my 27th birthday, I just invited a bunch of my girlfriends to the track, and they came. They had a great time because they were drinking and just having fun, and they watched me ride, which I thought was really awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like you are pretty good at setting boundaries as well. Do you think you are? I know we were a couple hours away from each other this winter, but you're like, all right, so I have time on Friday. Let's see, what is it? It's May now. I have time on Friday, June 20th. You know, like you schedule things in to make things happen, but I feel like you also have to put up the boundaries in order to make everything happen.
Yeah. So, I think what you put in is what you get out of things. And that's not just for friendships. That also goes for home life and marriage and your pets, everything else. So I feel like I used to have so much pressure on being the best version that I could be. Like, I want to be everywhere, wherever all my friends are. And then I just realized like I need to make time for myself and do what makes me happy. So if I have work meetings or whatever and Jessica's in town, I'm going to make Jessica a priority because I want to go ride mountain bikes with Jessica. So I'll set aside X amount of hours, go see her, and then be like, hey, Jess, just so you know, I got to cut our day short. I got to go do something else. Or, hey, sorry, Jake's coming home and I really want to spend quality time with him. I make sure to make the people I want a priority in my life. Yeah, that's the right way of going about it.
Yeah. And that's not easy. It's not easy to do.
Yeah. And even like riding, right? Like, I want to ride my mountain bike every single day of the week, but I can't. So I'll make it a point to at least ride my bike once a week. And same with riding my dirt bike. I'd like to ride my dirt bike once a week, and I try to stick to that plan.
Yeah. And that's like one of the reasons why this podcast was kind of on hold for the last almost year. It's just like trying to find that balance in your life, especially with last year, COVID causing chaos everywhere.
Yeah.
I started the podcast when I was traveling full time. So we were living in the van, driving all across the country. And it was like,
and that is super difficult, by the way, especially with like not having access to Wi-Fi.
And that was kind of the hard thing is you're like, all right, well, I have to schedule this. I want to make this a priority, but then you happen to be on that day that you scheduled it, you randomly happen to be in Sedona, Arizona, and it's the only day it's going to be nice. And you have to take 2 hours out of your day to do a podcast versus like live this like amazing moment out. And finding that balance got really hard, especially we don't have set work hours when we're on the road. And, me saying, hey, I got this podcast to do while my husband's fully supportive. It's also like, well, I
want to live in the moment and enjoy it.
Yeah. And so just, a mix of that and then career changes and all of that, trying to sort life out and figure out the balance isn't always the easiest thing. So I think it's really cool that you have those boundaries and you've come to learn what's important, what's not important, what to focus on, what not to focus on. And you kind of have your seasons too.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't think we got it figured out, Jess. And I don't think that we'll ever have it figured out.
Exactly. Yeah. Adam always says, once you figure out that there's nothing to figure out, then you've got it figured out.
Nail on the head again.
Yeah.
Good job.
So with between doing taekwondo and dirt biking, which are kind of like masculine type sports, how do you, I don't want to say balance, I'm not looking to say the word balance, but I feel that you still embrace who you are. You're like, I like hair, I like makeup, I like fashion. How important is that to you in life, in who you are, in these sports?
Yeah, that's a great question. Wow. And that's like 100% who I am. That's what makes me me. And the other day, actually, I was talking to my dad and he checks up on me. He's like, oh, hey, how was riding the track? Oh, good. But we got talking into like hobbies, and Jake likes to make fun of me for this too. It's like I pick up a new hobby every other week, but I like trying new things all the time. And if I haven't tried it, I need to try it. And I think I've always been kind of a weirdo when it comes to that. Like, I think like nothing takes my parents by surprise anymore. Like, hey, I want to go get my ear pierced. Like last weekend, I told my mom I'm going to go get my ear pierced. She's like, what? I'm not even surprised. Let me go with you. I'm like, okay, thanks, Mom. But they see that like doing my makeup, like even my dad commented like, oh, I'm surprised you're not doing your makeup or shooting a video on makeup or making another YouTube video. They see that's like super important to me. And it's really cute because my dad, like I said, he owns a car business, and a lot of times I'll come into the shop and he's got like my YouTube video popped up on his computer showing one of his clients like a video of mine, and he used to rag on me for that. But at the end of the day, that I know that I'm like making him proud, and I'm proud of myself for doing things that makes me happy. Like, I think that I used to care about what other people thought of me and what people would say about me behind my back, but I think I've kind of given up on that in a way. So
kind of like some hesitation there.
Because I think that a part of me will always care what other people think, but I think that as I'm getting a little bit older, I care less and less. And I think that I'll continue to do that, but that's something that I definitely want to improve on in the future.
Yeah, it's hard because you naturally, I feel like you're like me in the sense of you want to make people, not that you want to make people happy, but you want to make people like you. And it's really difficult when you feel like you're coming from a genuine place and somebody else doesn't quite see that or feel that. And you're like, am I portraying this wrong? Is there something I can do better to make them like me?
Yeah. And then I look at it this way too. It's like a huge part of me didn't want to start recording YouTube videos because guess what? You're walking around with the camera drawing attention to yourself. And people are like, oh my God, do you see her? She's recording a video of herself. What a nerd. And it's like, you got to break past that boundary if you want to get somewhere in life. At least for my specific goals, that's what I got to do. And then you have people trying to judge things from the things that you record. And then you start questioning yourself, like, am I only recording one point of view? And you'll never make everyone happy. So just, you got to do you.
Yeah. I try to always remind myself that I question myself. I say, did I make the right decision in whatever? So like something that happened a couple weeks ago was there was a girl really just ragging on girls in a dirt bike group on TikTok. Most of the girls in the dirt bike community know of this, and it was not right at all. Like what she was doing, I did not agree with, but I listen a lot to Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's always talking about empathy. And I don't like to be naive in the sense of thinking that everybody in the world has good intentions. Like, I don't necessarily believe that. Like, I have common sense and I have awareness and street smarts, if you want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I also think people do dumb things for insecure reasons. And I didn't unfollow this girl, and I got so much, like, I don't want to say backlash. I got some messages though about the fact that I didn't unfollow this.
You're friends with her. You can't be friends with me, girl.
And I'm just like, so I'm like, first thing, I'm like questioning myself. Did I do the right thing? And I was like, well, my reason for not unfollowing her was because I was almost debating like sending her a message, like in a kind-hearted way, not in a rude way. And whatever. I was just like questioning myself. And so then I had to like go about, your blood's immediately boiling because you feel like you got attacked. But deep down, I'm like, am I making the right decision? Do I feel right about this decision? Now, how can I respond to this decision appropriately? And therefore, I then responded to the decision that I made appropriately, had a conversation with the girls who messaged me, and we all felt so much better about the situation. And it's not that those kinds of situations aren't always going to end where both people are A-okay with the outcome. But I feel like deep down, you have to know that you made the right decision that was right and loyal to yourself. So
yeah, 100% agree. And I think just to touch point on what you just said, like messaging other people through social media, I think writing things on social media can be misconstrued. Because a lot of times you don't know the other party's like reaction. And what I think is really awesome between you and I, a lot of times I'll pick up the phone and I'll voice text you and I'm like, I know this is super awkward, but I want you to like hear my tone of voice. And I think that's really like, helpful.
Yeah. And that's what I had done as well, as I actually sent a video message. I'm like,
yes,
with my face. So you can actually see who I am. And because I don't know who knows who I actually am behind Rad Chicks. I don't know who knows me, but I'm like
person. Duh.
Well, I'm just like a real person. Like I understand where you're coming from, and having the facial expression along with the voice, you know, in certain scenarios makes a big difference versus, like you said, just the text or who you assume somebody is based upon what you read of them or read of what they wrote. Because so often I find I write things, it'll take me an hour to write a post sometimes because I'm like, I want to make sure it's coming with the right words, the right context, and the right feeling behind it. It's silly, but words go far on social media.
I 100% agree. 100%. And a lot of things could be like taken wrong on social media too. So yeah.
Yeah. But I was wondering about the whole makeup thing, and it made me think of it because I feel like I had gone through, when I first started traveling, so I like downsized from my house and we were living in a van. And when I lived in my house, I had all the amenities. I had obviously the normal things that people take for granted, like electricity and heat and my blow dryer at full power and my flat iron and my makeup and all the things that I fully enjoyed. But when I decided to downsize, I was like, all right, if I'm downsizing, maybe I can like simplify my routine. Maybe I can have my hair a little more natural and maybe I won't wear makeup all the time. And I simplified my wardrobe to like a basic, like I didn't have 100 pairs of shoes anymore and clothes for every occasion. I had like a pair of jeans and a t-shirt.
Which takes a special person to do so, by the way.
Well, after having lived that lifestyle for like a year and living out of the van, I started to like, when you're living in a van and you don't have like showers at your disposal, you feel homeless. And so you go into these cities, like, or like we stayed in like Huntington Beach, for example. And like, not only are you walking out of a van, but then you like haven't showered in like 2 days and you feel homeless and then you look homeless. And it like really took a knock at my identity by not having like my hair done in platinum and my makeup done. And after I came home that year, I was like, I'm doing my makeup every day. I'm doing my hair. I don't care what it takes. And I definitely implemented more things into my wardrobe. And it's not so much that I'm insecure, but I think it's important to feel how you want to be, to look how you want to be perceived. Yeah. And I don't want to be perceived as homeless.
Girl, you do not look homeless and you are not homeless.
No, but
I definitely relate to that in the sense of like, let's say we get done riding somewhere. And again, if you don't shower for a couple of days, yes, you don't feel the greatest. So definitely can relate to that.
Yeah, I think it just helps. I don't know. It's part of your identity, like doing your hair, doing your makeup, like the way you dress. It's all about who you are.
Yeah, like you do you, like you see these people expressing themselves in different styles. And I just have like props to people who dress a little bit outside of the box because that takes guts, right?
Yeah, I love that. I like seeing someone that has unique style. It's really cool, but I don't have that creativity all the time.
I know. Yeah, it takes a special type of person. And I guess that's their hobby, right?
Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see, I just wrote some things down and I just wanted to see if like I touched on everything.
Yeah, of course.
I think for the most part, I think we did pretty good.
Good. So much fun. Can we do this like once a week?
Heck yeah.
Coffee chat with Monika and Jessica.
New podcast, Monika Gilliam. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to ask next week. New podcast, Monika Gilliam again. How do you say your maiden name?
Blahotchkova.
Blahotchkova?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, and what is your native language? Is it Czech? Is that what it?
Yeah, so it is Czech and it's spelled CZECH. But then I looked at Google like a couple weeks ago. I think it was while you were in town, and they now call it Czechia. So
yeah, I think I commented on something, and that was probably when you did it.
Yeah. But now Czech Republic is called Czechia, so that's very interesting, like news to me. But then I Googled it like when it was effective and it was like 2013. I'm like, what? I have not known about this for this long.
Well, that was exactly what I did. Is you said something, and so I wanted to respond with where you were from, but I wanted to make sure I said it correctly because I know you always said Czech Republic, but I Googled it and it said that, and I was like, I wanted to be appropriate in my comment.
I'm literally the type of person that takes like no offense to anything. So if someone like doesn't know my name or like butchers my last name, butchers where I'm from, anything, like I'm just like, okay, cool, it's fine. Forget about it. Thank
you, Monika Gilliam, for coming on, for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Everybody should go follow her YouTube channel if you're not already. It is Monika Gilliam, right?
Yeah. Just my name.
Yeah. Go subscribe to that. Go follow her on Instagram. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jess. This was so much fun.